You are listening to the true crime podcast, One Nation Under Crime, and we are your hosts. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Leah.
Yes, our intro is different.
It
I saw your
is.
face go, what?
This was different.
Yeah, and you may, I haven't decided if I'm going to reveal our new podcast art yet or not, but I have updated our podcast art, and I think I may do it because it's only fitting. This episode is coming out on Memorial Day, and 2 years ago, we started the podcast.
Yes, we did on Memorial Day.
Yes. So I think it's only fitting. We're going to kind of shake things up a bit in the way that we've been doing our podcast. So you'll see some differences. This episode and the next episode are going to be the same kind of formats that we've been working off of. But then after that, it's going to change a little bit. Not much, but it'll change a little bit.
New year, who dis?
Leah is going to have homework. She's not excited about it.
Wah, wah.
But our listeners will be happy. So our listeners like you talking. So they'll get to hear you talk a little bit more than just
that
me.
That makes me happy.
So
wait, am I a fan favorite? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. You could be. I don't know. I
mean, I get it. I totally get it.
We've got a good mix.
She says.
So I did tell you in our last episode that this week we were going to kind of talk about 2 different cases that were along the same lines of forgotten tales of the Civil War. And so we're going to kind of talk more about this. We're still in the year 1862. Our sources for this week, we have NOLA.com. Always a good one. We love
Let me
NOLA.
guess. I was going to say, it's out of Louisiana, I bet.
It is. Hey. We have the New York Times and the News Tribune. So those are kind of the main sources that I pulled from for this episode. We're going to go into our births for this year, births in 1862. There's going to be some births and deaths that are very, I'll say, not familiar, but we've discussed them or will discuss them soon. So January 31st, Robert Ford was born. Do you know the significance of Robert Ford?
Does it have something to do with vehicles?
It has something to do with a murder. No. You done?
Ford Theater? Ford Theater?
That would be really, like, what is it called? Serendipitous, if it were, but that's not. No, he is the American outlaw who murdered Jesse James.
Oh, well, I totally did not get that one.
He was an Aquarius. February 18th, we have Charles M. Schwab, who was born. A lot of people probably know that name, but he was a steel magnate. He was also an Aquarius. March 13th, we have Jane Delano, founder of the American Red Cross Nursing Service. She was a Pisces. September 11th, we have Hawley, like Hawley, not Holly, like Hollly. Hawley. Harvey Crippen, a.k.a. Dr. Crippen. He was a homeopath, ear and eye specialist, and a medicine dispenser. They didn't say pharmacist. They said medicine dispenser, which I thought was interesting. He was actually later hanged in London for the murder of his wife. He was one of the first criminals to be captured with the aid of wireless telegraphy.
Oh.
He's a Virgo. So he's one of yours.
I was going to say, that's not good for us Virgos.
Yeah, no. November 14th, George Washington Vanderbilt II was born.
Well, that's the name.
I know. A lot of people may know this name for different reasons. Vanderbilt, yes. But he was an art collector and member of the prominent Vanderbilt family, of course. And do you know what he is most known for commissioning?
No, not a college with a good football team. I'm sorry.
But the Biltmore Estate.
I was going to, when you said Vanderbilt, I was going to say I've never been to the Biltmore and I've always wanted to go.
Yeah, my boyfriend has been, and he said it's absolutely amazing. He took a bunch of photos and said that it was really cool. But I want
to go at Christmas time.
Oh, that'd be pretty. He commissioned the construction of a 250-room
He's the
mansion
one.
that would go on to be the largest privately owned home in the United States, and it is known as the Biltmore Estates. The Vanderbilts do not still own it. It was sold at one point. And I don't know who owns it now. It's another like big prominent family, but it's not the Vanderbilts anymore.
Oh, is it still privately owned?
I believe it's still privately owned, but publicly open.
Okay.
Because I know you can like pay to visit, and you can go.
Yeah, I mean it's like a hotel. You can stay.
You can go,
and they have their own vineyard. I mean,
yeah.
like
It's
all
wild.
the things.
So he was a Scorpio. And then our deaths for 1862. Another fan favorite coming back, January 10th of 1862. Samuel Colt.
Name.
Yep, the businessman who established Colt's patent firearms manufacturing company and made the mass production of revolvers commercially viable, died. And if you would like to hear about his brother and a murder, you can go back to episodes 44 and 45.
There you go.
Covered that. It was a very interesting case of trying to get away with murder and not quite being able to do it.
No, I really don't. First of all, murder is bad.
Well, we know murder is bad.
Don't attempt murder. But I mean, you know, if you think you're going to get away with it, really, people, I mean, just don't. Just don't.
Just don't.
I mean, you think you're really, really smart. Just
words of wisdom from Leah. Just don't.
Just don't. Just don't. Murder is bad. Just don't.
January 18th, John Tyler died. He was the 10th president and vice president of the United States. I just really admit my voice may sound weird today. I realize my voice sounds very like maybe mousy or something today, but I've been at the pool the past 2 days.
I was gonna say it sounds kind of sultry, like scratchy, you know.
Raspy. I was sick not long ago, and I was on a conference call for work, and everybody kept messaging me, and they were like, "Oh, your voice sounds so nice," and I was like, "It's just because I'm hoarse. Like I'm not a horse, but I'm hoarse."
So you've been yelling at the kids at the pool. That's what it is. No running.
We didn't have them the past couple of days with us, but we've been there, and we're just like trying to talk over people and trying to like. But our pool is nice, so it's been fun. I've not, for anyone wanting to know, I have not gotten sunburnt yet. So
I'm very proud of you. That means you have been following the rules, applying the sunscreen. Usually, as Mama Leah says,
I'm the first to like get burnt.
Not me. I slather that stuff on.
Oh, my boyfriend's already gotten burnt, so he's crispy.
Tell him he gets a demerit.
Oh, he knows. I tried to put it on him before, and he was like, "I have a method to my madness." I was like, "Okay, fine, burn."
So he gets skin cancer. That's not cool.
February 11th of 1862, Luther Voss Bell died. He was one of the 13 mental hospital superintendents who met in Philadelphia in 1844 to organize the Association of Medical Superintendents of American Institutions for the Insane. That is what
that is a mouthful.
Yes, and it is the AMSAII.
A
Masai. Yes. So,
well, and and we've talked about this before. The terminology is ever changing.
Terminology has changed quite a bit.
And I mean, even terminology from when I was teaching. I started teaching in 2001, a couple years back. The terminology for special ed, different distinctions that has changed.
Yeah, like
just in 20 years.
There's like one of the and I'll finish this first. So now the MSIE is now known as the American Psychiatric Association.
See, that's where I was going.
And it's the first medical specialty society in the United States. And I was listening the other day Because like obviously y'all know we talk about mental health a lot and about, how it's super important. And
And May is Mental Health Month, by the way.
yes. So happy mental health month.
Yes.
Hope you're taking care of it. And if not, do it.
And this
So
is your fun fact.
yeah, fun fact. But like we no longer say Asperger's.
Mm-hmm.
You know why?
No. Why?
Because the doctor that it was named after, bit of a eugenicist, a little bit of a Nazi.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
So people are like, we don't call it that anymore. Which
I, I didn't know why it had been
understandable.
changed.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know why that's not
Bit of
used
a
anymore.
so
Oh,
yeah. Um
well,
yeah. Which I mean,
okay.
I understand some people still say it, some people still use it. To me it's not offensive and because I understand some people don't understand. But if anybody's wondering why people are so
Well,
like
I did kind of wonder
against
why
it.
that wasn't used anymore because I
Yeah.
mean, I was like, well, that's a distinction. But
Bit of a nut.
it's ever changing. It's
Yes.
ever changing.
So let's see. We talked about this guy and I went into, and I'm not going to go into it again. Because it was very hard for me to even wrap my mind around it at that point. But May 6th of 1862, Henry David Thoreau died. He was the leading transcendentalist. Yes, I did try. I went into detail about what that was at one point, and I'm not going to do it again.
And I brought up George Strait's song because
Yes.
that's like the only like
Yep.
transcendental
Yep.
meditation.
He is best known for his book Walden, a reflection upon simple living in natural surroundings, and his essay Civil Disobedience. And then July 24th, Martin Van Buren died. He was the 8th president and vice president of the United States.
Got a lot of presidents dropping that year.
Yep, John Tyler and Martin Van Buren. So let's see. As I said back in our
Can we pause for a second?
Sure.
We must note that this past week we lost a great.
We did lose a great.
Tina Turner passed away. Y'all.
Very sad. Which always sparks my thought of like, oh my God, who's next? Because like, they always happen in threes. And like, geez, if Tom Hanks is taken away from us, we're all done.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, it's
yes.
very but yes, that's very
I just wanted to pause and mention
she did so much. And I mean, man, she was in her 80s. So that's
83.
Yeah. So good for her. She dealt with a lot in her life and she went through a lot. I mean, if you are not aware of Ike and Tina, then
yes,
you'll have to learn a bit about that. But yeah, it's
so we just need to pause and take a moment to remember her because she brought a lot. She brought a lot. I mean, and if you don't move and boogie a little bit to Proud Mary, you're dead inside. You're dead. You're dead.
It's a good one.
Yes. So we just had to mention that since we were talking about deaths, not the same year. That was just in this past week. Correct. But we had to mention that loss because like
she was also not born in 1862.
No. But like Kayla and I had been texting and then I get in all caps. Tina Turner died, like all caps.
And I had to like make sure because I saw it on like Instagram or something. And so I had to like go look and make sure it was true.
like Google it and say, Tina Turner. Because there's all why do people like post that somebody has died when they haven't really died? Why do people do? Why?
I don't know.
Why?
I don't know, but I was like convinced. I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be a lie. But no, it's in fact
it was true. Yeah. So okay. Well, thank you for letting us have that pause and that moment to reflect and thank her for her, her
contributions.
Contributions, that's the word.
Yes.
I mean, and just, the era, she helped shape that. She helped shape music like we know it, I mean, that's really the era where, rock and roll and everything was really, growing
So
and
wild.
emerging. So thank you, Tina Turner.
Yes. So on to, I thought you were talking about, so I'll pause here as well. Because when Leah said that, I was like, oh my gosh, what is she going to say? Because
you never know with me.
I know. Well, and we can't discuss all of it at the moment. I will just say that something occurred big in the past couple of weeks. And I didn't know where you were going with that. Eventually, I'm sure we'll be able to discuss it. Right now, we cannot discuss it. Neither Leah nor I are pregnant. We're not having, that's not it.
No. And I'm not
but
getting any more dogs. I'm not allowed. No more animals in my house.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to feed any strays anymore. So that's the new.
She's becoming the crazy cat lady.
Yeah, my boyfriend said it was right after we moved and he walked out into the garage and there was a raccoon in the garage. And
I don't know this story.
Yeah, he goes, it put both of its paws up and squared up. And I just closed the door. And he goes, you're not allowed to feed outside animals anymore. So, but no, so
you
something.
can have a pet raccoon.
It would be amazing. But so,
yes. They clean their food before they eat it.
I know.
They're clean animals.
They're so cute. I almost lost it when in my old house. I know it was adorable and I almost cried. Because why not? But yes, so something else occurred and eventually I'm sure we'll be given the green light to discuss. But as of right now, we cannot. But it's very
exciting.
There's a lot going on. Thanks, Leah. That was Leah's phone. It's
horrible. I just told that person I was recording.
Anyways, it's fine. But so eventually I'm sure we'll be able to discuss. Once I get the green light, we can discuss that recent life development. So we shall see. But as I said before, remember back to our last episode when I mentioned that we were going to be covering a couple of cases that also occurred during the Civil War, but might have been obscured by the Civil War. Both of these are interesting. One is a little bit shorter than the other, but nonetheless interesting. So June 7th of 1862, William Bruce Mumford was hanged in New Orleans. That's the only hint I'm going to give you about it. We don't have a major. What?
Nothing. Go ahead.
What was it?
Was he sentenced to be hanged by the neck until dead?
He was.
Okay.
So we'll get there. But we don't have a ton of information when it comes to this case, but it is interesting and worth mentioning. So William Bruce Mumford was born on December 5th of 1819 in North Carolina. There are bits and pieces that we know about his life up until the events that take place, though. In 1837, Mumford returned to North Carolina after serving in the Florida War. 5 years later, he got married to Mary Baumlin. Wow, my mind just went blank.
Couldn't go around that word.
Baumlin. It's Baumlin. And then 2 years later, in 1844, the couple moved to New Orleans, Louisiana. By 1846, he was a sergeant in the 3rd Louisiana Regiment, and he was sent to Mexico to serve in the Mexican-American War. However, he broke his leg shortly after he arrived, and he was discharged from service. The only info that I could find for him between 1846 and 1861 is simply, quote, followed gambling as a profession.
Well, I mean,
that was all it said. just shy of 15 years of followed gambling as a profession.
I mean, he stayed busy.
Now we're up to April of 1862, and the Union Commodore David Farragut and Union Navy ships were approaching New Orleans when he ordered 2 officers to send a message to the mayor of New Orleans to remove the Confederate flags from the Mint, Customs House, and City Hall. So, as we know, the U.S. Mint, where money is made, there was a mint in New Orleans at this time. They were supposed to be replaced with U.S. flags, but the mayor refused and said that it was beyond his jurisdiction to do so. At this time, New Orleans had not surrendered to Union forces, and Confederate Major General Mansfield Lovell begged Jefferson Davis to send more soldiers his way, but those pleas were left unanswered. Captain Henry W. Morris sent U.S. Marines ashore from the USS Pocahontas.
Ooh.
Love it. To raise the U.S. flag over the Mint. He did all of this without any knowledge that Farragut had sent forward a request to already do this. So he kind of did this. This was 2 separate things that occurred kind of like simultaneously. Farragut was still awaiting an official surrender from the mayor before invading the city. The Marines were successful in raising the flag, and an angry mob gathered in the area. Marines made it clear that if anyone who tried to remove or tamper with the flag would be fired upon from the ship. Not one to follow the rules. William Bruce Mumford and a group of 7 other men decided to remove the flag. As promised, fire came from the USS Pocahontas, and Mumford was injured by a flying piece of brick. The mob cheered as Mumford carried the flag.
A flying piece of brick?
Brick. So it like hit because he was going on the roof to get the flag down. And so when they fired from the ship, piece of brick like flew off, hit him.
Okay. I was thinking they were firing bricks. Okay. Makes sense. Took a minute.
That would make sense too. I mean, you know, if you don't have a lot to use,
if you don't, I mean,
you have.
Okay. I was curious.
The mob cheered as Mumford carried the flag to the mayor at City Hall, but allegedly. Without Mumford's knowledge, some of the onlookers tore the flag until it was reduced to a scrap of cloth.
Oh, no.
So
that's adding insult to injury.
Some of our listeners might know of a little thing called the United States Flag Code.
Yeah, that's not so nice.
To us, this is actually newish because the U.S. Flag Code was made effective. When do you think that the U.S. Flag Code was effective?
I don't know.
As what we know it today, if you had to take a guess at a year, what would you think it was?
I mean, when did Betsy Ross make the flag? Because I would think that it would always be. I mean, it's your flag.
I will give you a hint in your lifetime.
1987.
1998. It was in my lifetime as well. It's wild.
I was out of high school?
Yeah. That was when the United States Flag Code became
friends, I'm old.
effective. But the protection of the U.S. flag has been written into code much longer than that. So the protection of the flag has been there, but the actual flag code has not been effective. Today, this code outlines what is customary or what should occur with a flag, but it isn't necessarily a federal law. So it's not something that is on the law books. It's like you cannot do this, but it's a code of ethics. Like this is what we
do.
This is what we do.
Well, and remember, I was raised by a Navy man.
I know.
My brother is currently in the Navy, was an Eagle Scout, is an Eagle Scout. I have one nephew who is an Eagle Scout, another one who is finishing his Eagle Scout project. I mean, flags are respected.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So this was not until 1998 that the U.S. Flag Code was put into effect.
Wow.
So, however, some might be surprised to know that up until the Civil War, it was not common, for the U.S. flag to basically be everywhere. It was not common. You did not see the flag everywhere. Prior to the Civil War, the American flag was rarely seen outside of military forts, government buildings, and ships. But during the American War of Independence in 1812, the Army was not even officially sanctioned to carry the U.S. flag into battle. which is wild. It was not
Yes.
until 1834 that the artillery was allowed to carry the American flag. The Army would be granted to do the same in 1841. However, in 1847, in the middle of the war with Mexico, the flag was limited to camp use and not allowed to be brought into battle. This changed following the shots at Fort Sumter in 1861. The flag flying over the fort was allowed to leave with the Union troops as they surrendered. It was taken across northern cities, which spurred a wave of flag mania, as they called it. The Stars and Stripes, which had no real place in the public consciousness, suddenly became a part of the national identity. The flag became a symbol of the Union, and the sale of flags exploded at this time. In a reversal in 1847, Army regulations would be dropped and the flag was allowed to be carried into battle again. So this is like all bouncing throughout time. Like sometimes it could be carried, sometimes it couldn't. It really just depended on what was going on at the time. Some wanted to remove the stars of the states, which had been ceded, but Abraham Lincoln was opposed, believing that it would give legitimacy to the Confederacy. He was like, no, we're not removing it because that means that we're officially recognizing that they seceded. We're not recognizing it. Kind of like when you tell kids, yeah, that's fine. You can, we'll do that later, but you're never going to officially recognize it. Like you're like,
yeah.
We're never going to, it's not going to happen.
But
so
you talked about it, the sale of the flags, increased. It made me think of when 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
Like
they were
the
everywhere.
year it happened. Everywhere. I mean, I had a magnetic one on my car.
Yeah, everywhere.
They were everywhere just as a show of solidarity.
Yeah. And so this was definitely when when the Civil War started, it was a sign of the Union. So anybody that was kind of like your representation of your commitment to the Union if you had an American flag.
Solidarity.
So, which is just wild. For those of our international listeners, because we do have a few. Hi, Canada.
Yes.
Hi. Hi, Norway. Hi, New Zealand, Japan, Ukraine. Hi, Ukraine. We have some Ukrainian listeners, so that was fun time. We've actually had a big spike in listeners for some weird reason. So hi everyone.
We're happy about that. Just surprise.
We do have a lot of international listeners. So for our international listeners that don't really get the history of the American flag as like a 2-week lesson in school. We have to learn everything about the American
flag. And apparently it's very American to have your flag displayed. Like most countries, like
they don't do that.
Yeah, that it's really weird. Like if they come to visit the States, like the flag is everywhere. And they're like, why is your flag everywhere?
Yeah, it's so it's pretty, our flag is, in a sense, it's pretty simple. But like I said, if you didn't take the 2-week course like we did, it consists of 13 equal horizontal red and white stripes, starting with and ending with red. So you'll always see the flag start and end with red. There is a blue rectangle in the top left corner with 50 white stars arranged in 9 offset horizontal rows. The stars represent all 50 states, and the 13 stripes represent the 13 British colonies who declared independence from Great Britain. So that's our flag in a nutshell. And that's the reason why it looks the way that it looks. So by this time, our friend Mumford had made his way to the mayor's office and he left the small flag scrap behind on the mayor's desk. 3 days later, Union
possibly
Army,
all together, possibly not, but somebody took it and put it into pieces.
Yeah, it said there was a scrap of it left behind.
Okay.
3 days later, Union Army Major General Benjamin Butler heard about the flag incident, and to make matters worse, Mumford was giving a speech with the mayor of the city at the St. Charles Hotel, and Mumford was wearing a piece of the flag. Just a piece. It was then that Butler decided Mumford had to be arrested and punished for his actions. By May 1st, the Union Army had occupied New Orleans, and Mumford was arrested and charged with, quote, high crime and misdemeanors against the laws of the United States and the peace and dignity thereof, and the law martial.
I mean, he kind of incriminated himself by wearing a piece of the flag. I mean,
I
guys,
found this
if you're going to
weird.
commit a crime that involves destroying,
Mhm.
something that is a part of the crime, don't wear a piece of it.
Which is funny because if you listen to what he was charged with high crimes and misdemeanors against the laws of the United States. So he wasn't charged with the flag, with anything dealing with the flag. So that's what's funny is the flag code itself is not a federal law. Even though the flag code wasn't until 1998, there were rules against it. Was kind of like a respect thing. Like you don't step on the
Right.
flag, you don't drop the
Right.
flag, you don't do these things. But there was never a law saying you couldn't do that.
Right. But he was told not to remove it, and that's what he was charged for, correct?
Yes, and because he removed it, it caused kind of like an uprising of like
Right.
rebellion, like,
Mm-hmm.
so
He was the instigator.
yes. And it seems that they wanted to make an example of Mumford for various reasons. And by May
Mm-hmm.
30th, a military tribunal was convened and Mumford was convicted. The argument could have been made that the city wasn't actually occupied by Union forces at the time, but that point was never brought up in court. So, because they weren't occupied at the time, they just sent forces ahead to put the flag up,
Right.
but they had not been invaded, they had not been attacked. So,
But by the time the court
technically,
happened, yeah, but
they
but
had
by
been.
the time, yeah, and I mean nobody's going to stand up to him.
No.
I mean,
So, Major General Benjamin Butler issued Special Order Number 70 on June 5th of 1962, stating, quote, William B. Mumford, a citizen of New Orleans, having been convicted before a military commission of treason and an overt act thereof tearing down the United States flag from a public building of the United States after said flag was placed there by Commodore Farragut of the United States Navy. It is ordered that he be executed according to the sentence of said military commission on Saturday, June 7th, between the hours of 8 a.m. and 12 a.m., under the directions of the Provost Marshal of the District of New Orleans, and for so doing this shall be his sufficient warrant.
boom,
So,
shakalaka.
I mean, yikes. And which is funny because
Yikes.
well, and what's funny is because Farragut didn't put the flag up. The Marines did, not the Navy. So, just before noon on June 7th, William Bruce Mumford was taken to the courtyard of the Mint to be hanged. This was Butler's idea of poetic justice, considering the flag was taken from the Mint to begin with. So you're going to take it from the Mint.
Well, there you go.
Several onlookers arrived, and Mumford was allowed to give a speech in which he spoke of his patriotism for the Confederacy and his love for what he considered the true meaning of the U.S. flag, a symbol he had fought under in the Seminole Wars and the Mexican-American War. Then he was taken to the gallows and hanged. After his death, Mumford became a martyr for the cause of the Confederacy. By June 18th, the Confederate governor of Louisiana, Thomas Overton Moore, issued a statement declaring Mumford a hero and a model citizen.
Well,
Robert E. Lee demanded that Union General Henry Wagner Halleck explain how execution could have occurred for a crime committed before New Orleans was occupied. Confederate President Jefferson Davis issued a proclamation stating that Benjamin Butler should be considered a criminal and worthy of hanging. Butler actually ended up later assisting Mumford's wife with a job in Washington. Mumford was originally buried in a vault in Cypress Grove Cemetery in New Orleans in 1950. The Ladies Memorial Association moved Mumford's remains to the base of the Confederate monument at Greenwood Cemetery in New Orleans. The association
is that monument still there?
Placed a small stone there that reads William B. Mumford, martyr to the cause of the Confederacy, June 7th, 1862, age 42. Mumford's name has been mentioned alongside figures such as Abraham Lincoln, Elmer E. Ellsworth, John Pelham, and Stonewall Jackson, which
Huh.
represent martyred heroes and violent villains for both the North and the South. After his wife's death in 1912, the South Carolina newspaper, The Times and Democrat, noted that just hearing the name Mumford in the South could still, quote, stir the hearts of the older people with bitter memories of General Butler's brutality and revengefulness.
Mm.
At the Confederate Memorial Hall Museum, a piece of the flag that Mumford tore, the rope that he was hanged with, and a large image of him are still on display.
Wow.
Yeah. Absolutely wild.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean,
So,
and yeah, it wasn't, the city wasn't under their control yet,
nope.
but by the time everything came about,
Mm-hmm.
it was. And so nobody was going to stand up. I mean, because they had just been beaten,
Yeah.
beaten back. And so, I mean, they couldn't do anything, but that was a
It's
good
wild.
point.
Now we're going to
Wow.
take a sharp left turn and head out to the Old West for our
Oh,
next story.
Wild Wild West.
West Desperado. I can't. Anyways,
That was a fun movie.
such a good movie. She's known by many names.
Uh-oh.
Mm-hmm. Madame Vestal and Lurline Monteverde. Lurline are of the more popular variety, but mostly she was known as Belle Siddons. She was born around 1842 in Jefferson City, Missouri, and began life as a proper lady. That's what they called her, a proper lady.
Did she become another kind of lady?
Who went on to be a top student at the Female University of Lexington. It should be no shock that we are, in fact, back to Civil War time already, and Belle has taken on the life of a spy for the Confederacy.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yes. Yes. Wild.
So it wasn't the kind of lady I was thinking. It wasn't like Belle Watson from Scarlet, Gone with the Wind.
Yeah. No,
it
not
wasn't
quite.
Belle Watson.
And yeah. I'll say I was watching this and I was reading this and researching and searching for something else at the same time. And Wired on YouTube actually has the series. Your honey would find it very fascinating. And it's a series of basically they have people who are in certain professions pick apart movies. And so they have
like for inaccuracies.
Yes. So
ooh, I would like that.
One that we were watching, she was in the CIA. And
cool.
She was in charge of people's disguises and people's identities and helping people. And her husband's actually super famous. And there was a movie made after him. But she was talking about how women, how spies were done. And they show like a clip of a famous movie with like a spy scene in it. And she would see it and she would say, okay, like this is why this wouldn't happen. Like this is where this would, or she would say like, no, this is actually done really well. Like this is exactly what you would do if you were a spy, like going through the crowds. And it was very, very interesting, but it's on YouTube. Wired is the channel that does it, but Vanity Fair also has a series of them too, but they're very good. Like one of them, the guy is a meteorologist, and so they would show like different weather phenomenon in movies, and he would say like this could happen, or like he picked apart Day After Tomorrow, and he was like, oh, these things like couldn't happen. This isn't possible.
Yeah. But
then like Twister, he was like, of course this is possible. Like this is after actually true events. So, wild. So I was watching that as I was researching this, and it was very interesting. But so she, our friend Belle, she took on the life of a spy. One night she met an officer who was a bit too chatty, and he tried to impress Belle with his knowledge of seizing the Memphis and Mobile Railroad.
Oh.
She passed that information along, and it ended up being extremely important to cutting off supplies to the Union and
We
forcing them.
cut supply lines. Sorry.
Yes. They enforced the Union through Vicksburg, where that's where the Battle of Vicksburg was, and they were
Okay.
severely outnumbered. So she had a hand in that because she told them, like, hey, they're coming, like, just FYI, it's the info that I have.
I think I'd be a good spy.
No, you wouldn't.
I would not. You would be. I would not.
Be.
I mean, I'm good at getting drinks bought for me.
No.
Just because, I'm just me. I mean, I don't mean that in like, any kind of way. It's just funny. I get free stuff all the time just because I'm just me. For men and women, not like, like I'm not like, hey, big boy, buy me a drink. Not like that.
Yes, you are.
But, well, I mean, no. But I would not be a good spy.
No,
my face tells
not.
everything. My face tells everything.
It depends on whether my brain is consciously telling my face to not do something. If I'm caught off guard, then yes. But if I'm like on a mission, you're not going to know.
Yeah. But my face just always tells.
True. But in 1862, Belle got herself in a bit of a pinch when a Union spy did not know this about this gentleman. Named James Butler Hickok, aka Wild Bill, was a spy for the Union.
I didn't know that either.
He learned about Belle and gave that info to the Union to try and trap her. She was arrested and put in federal prison in St. Louis. She was sentenced to Grand Street Rebel Prison, but served only 4 months before she was pardoned. There are 2 stories about her pardon that have circulated. One is that she was told to leave the state and to not return until after the war, to which she listened. And once the war was over, she came back and married an army surgeon. The other story is that she was let go on the condition that she pay off her treason by working as a nurse for Union forces. And that's where she met the army surgeon that she would later marry. Unfortunately, the marriage didn't last very long because the doctor she married to died of yellow fever. But Belle moved on and married a gambler. Not that one. That you're thinking, anyways. And learned how to play cards. I always think of pictures. But anyway, she learned how to play cards. She was a dealer of the game 21. And once her second husband died, she moved to Wichita, Kansas, and began hustling in the gambling trade as Madame Vestal.
How did her second husband die?
Didn't say.
I mean, I'm just saying she got 2 dead husbands. She's a spy. She got 2 dead husbands.
And now she's a gambler.
And now she got another name.
Okay, Madame Vestal. She made quite the name for herself and had a few cities to house her gambling enterprises until she heard about the gold strike in the Black Hills. She packed up and moved to Deadwood, South Dakota to open a gambling dance hall bar.
Oh, so she is one of those kinds of ladies.
With a change in business came a change in name, and she was known to the locals as Lurleen Monteverde.
Lurleen. Why would you choose the name Lurleen?
The newspapers described her as, quote, flawlessly groomed beauty, inviting, sultry, and sensuous.
She was one of those kinds of ladies.
I was apparently in a mood because I put, to which I say, same. With accolades.
She described the host of this podcast.
It's weird. To a T.
To a T. With especially with that voice you got going on, baby.
I know. A little raspiness that I got. With accolades like that, you know that she attracted quite the following. And soon she was rubbing elbows yet again with Wild Bill and John Wesley Hardin, who was also
just elbows. I mean, I am just asking. You know, was it just weenuses being rubbed? You know, the weenus is the very tip of your elbow.
No comment.
That's the very tip of your elbow.
I cannot say what I would write. What I would. Never mind. Anyways, moving on.
Okay.
Um,
It's just a question.
When she was dealing a game of 21, a stagecoach robber named Archie McLaughlin came in. She thought it was love at first sight, but it was really the beginning of the end.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Belle still remembered her spying days in the war, and Archie had a job for her. She was to get information from stagecoach drivers who came to her bar and relay that information to Archie. One night, she got a little bit loose and let it slip that a robbery was planned one night. Archie McLaughlin and one of his men, Billy Mansfield, were captured, but on their way back to stand trial in Deadwood, vigilantes captured them and hanged them from a cottonwood tree.
Oh,
Archie,
my.
yeah. Archie's death drove Belle to attempt suicide. And even though she survived, she became an alcoholic and a drug addict. He
Oh.
wandered from town to town after that and was still known as one of the best dealers of 21 in the West. In 1881, she was arrested in San Francisco, but that's where her story runs out because Belle Siddons was never heard from again. There have been two claims regarding her death. One is that she died from a drug overdose, and another is that she died in jail. Regardless, after her arrest in 1881, Belle disappeared from the history books.
Huh.
Yep.
So she died of a broken heart, basically.
Basically, she
She
was
survived two husbands,
Mm-hmm.
but this third guy that she didn't even marry,
Mm-mm.
his death is what broke her.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yep. So those are two of our stories for this week. I thought it was pretty fitting to tie in just some other outside Civil War stories that
It is interesting to remember that things are going on in the West that are totally unrelated to the Civil War.
right that like the West, because we think that the West is such like a different time, like it's its own separate timeline outside of the timeline that we see. But no, really, like Wild Bill was a Union spy.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And I mean, things that were going on with the Civil War did affect the West and what was going on. You don't think about they're going on concurrently. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like they're going on at the same exact time, and it's very weird because I guess the fighting for the Civil War was so centralized
Yeah.
to specific areas that when it comes to the West, like the West was basically untouched by the Civil War, just because no one was fighting out there. It was all in Mississippi and Tennessee and Virginia, and
Right. Well,
those
because they
like
were
straight,
territories.
yeah. And so it's just very odd to see like you step outside of the, you know, really where the colonies were is really where the Civil War is still going on.
Yeah.
Really, you step outside of that and it's like a different world from
Mm-hmm.
the Civil War, because these people in the West, like they're not concerned with like the war at this time because they're not really a part of it. They're not a
Yeah. I
part
mean,
of
they
the
may
US
have
yet.
family back home that may be a part of it,
Yeah.
sure, but it's not happening
At the
in
same, it's
their.
yeah, it's not in their sphere. Like it's not in
Yeah.
their,
It probably had an impact on getting goods to them,
yeah, I
but
would
they could they would probably get goods like from the other side of the world too.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just interesting to think
It's
about because you don't
very
think about that when you're looking, watching old westerns and stuff. Not that
yeah.
I do that frequently, but
And for there to be other times where you think, oh, there were other deaths occurring that were really like to make a statement, like to make a statement of to not mess with the flag. Like you really hanged a man for taking down a flag. Like
yeah,
to make such a statement of this is not going to happen on our watch. Like this is
yeah,
not, and it's just very odd for something like that, where and for a guy who was like, I was in the military, like I fought under this flag, like you understand that, right? Like I
hmm
risked my life for this flag. And like now you're putting me, okay. It's
Yeah.
just very, it's very wild.
But I
And
will say, like I said, I have a lot of it with my family. I mean, my grandfather was in the Army.
yeah,
I have Navy ties, I have Boy Scout ties, all that. I mean, I had been taught respect for the flag.
yeah,
I mean, my dad has a flagpole, and we were going to lunch after church today. We rode with mom and dad. Daddy said, "Oh, I should have put my flag at half mast today." I mean, like,
yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of things. Just because that matters. I mean, it matters, period. But it
It's just,
especially matters
yeah, it's
to him.
so,
So, I mean, I've been taught that respect my
and
entire life.
for,
You don't let it fall on the ground.
right. And you don't
You
like
fold
your,
it correctly.
mm-hmm.
If
It's,
it starts looking tattered, you take it down and you give it to a local Boy Scout troop to
mm-hmm.
dispose of it correctly. There's a way you don't just throw it away.
Yeah, it's very wild just in the ways, and for the US flag code to not even be a thing until 1998.
And see, I had no clue because my entire life,
Mm-hmm.
it's just
It's
been
always,
you
there's
respect the
always been,
flag.
like a code of conduct surrounding it, but it was never like actually federal regulation
Yeah,
to do
that's
so.
crazy to
So
me.
that's
And
wild.
the protests, like Vietnam protests and stuff, that was setting flags on fire, standing on flags, and
Mm-hmm.
all that sort of stuff. I mean, I
Which is
remember talking
probably
about that.
what influenced the flag code to be actually
Absolutely.
implemented.
Absolutely. I'm sure it was, but to me, I didn't know that it wasn't
Yeah.
because,
It's such
I
like
knew
a,
that was
of course
wrong.
that's a thing, like it's, of course that's already something that we all know.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
So thought it was interesting to step outside of the Civil War for a bit, since these few years were going to be just overran by the Civil War and a bunch of info surrounding that. I have been teasing it. We are coming up on a very interesting, very famous case? Question mark. Um,
Event, case, moment.
um, it spans years.
Ooh.
Um,
Saga.
it's
Saga.
saga is a very, very good way to
Look,
describe it.
I have a BS degree, baby. I can come up with some words.
Saga is a good way to describe it. I will be curious to see how many people can guess what it is about. We'll
Do
see.
we have any hints?
I can't give too many because it is so famous that most people with any hint would probably get it. I will say it's a saga. And
So now I'm hearing that.
I'll leave it at that.
Okay, I'm hearing "Gone with the Wind" in my head. Da
No,
da da da.
it's not that.
Da 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 da.
But it is a
Tomorrow is another
saga.
day.
I will say this saga has been portrayed in media. I'll say that. The media really likes this saga. I'll say that as well, but I can't say anything else. I don't know how many episodes it is from now. I know what the next one is about, and it's not that one. I want to say it's coming up in the next like 3 or 4 episodes that we'll discuss it. So,
color me intrigued.
Oh, you will be. I know a pretty good bit about this saga, so I'm interested to dive back into it. I did a report on this saga in high school, so we will discuss at length. I have a feeling it's just going to be one very, very long episode, so that there's that to look forward to. But we will see. We'll see. You all just be thinking in your mind what it can be, and then when we come up to that episode, you're going to see it pop up in your feed and you're going to know. You're going to be like, that's the episode she was talking about. You're going to just know. So we will get there. But we appreciate you guys for listening this week on our 2-year anniversary. Happy anniversary.
Yeah.
for our 2-year anniversary, you could give us a great, great, great present and go to Apple and rate and review our podcast 5 stars, 5 stars
Yes.
only. We've discussed this before. But Apple Podcasts actually helps us really gain more listeners. If we are able to get, additional ratings and things, Spotify also offers it now. So anywhere, we would just greatly appreciate it.
We deserve it.
We do. You can follow us pretty much anywhere with One Nation Under Crime. I think I'm gonna put up the new podcast art. So by this time,
Do
people will have already seen
it.
it. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Kind of doing a little bit of a rebrand, a little refresh, if you will.
Yes.
So
I need a refresh on me. Kayla's seeing me try to pull some skin back on my face and such. That's why she's laughing.
So funny. So, yeah, we might have some things coming up in the works as far as some things that might be shifting and changing.
I don't need any shifting.
We might have video components to our podcast in the future. That has been suggested as a good thing to do. So we'll see. Who knows? Yeah, so we'll just
only if you promise us free things. I mean, I'm just saying. Just kidding.
So we appreciate you guys for listening to this episode of One Nation Under Crime. We will see you here same time.
Different crime.
Next time. And remember, there isn't always liberty and justice for all.
Nope. Sometimes you just disappear.
Yeah, or you just get outspied by another spy.
That's true.
We will see you guys next time. Bye.